worlds. The same year, the same Earth, only different dimensions.
Hello and welcome to How to Fix It. Another year, another Sliders review. And like last year, because I've exhausted all the ones that are notorious for being bad, I left the choice up to you. And you chose the episode that I figured was going to win last year. Actually, this one was pretty close in the polls to Lipschitz Live, so I actually watched both last year to take notes, so I'd be prepared for either outcome. Come to think of it, that might be why I was so angry in that video, because I had to watch two bad episodes. Not that it didn't deserve the thrashing that it got, but I digress. El Cid... yeah, this one is bad. And it's from way back in Season 2. A season that we haven't touched on in the individual episode reviews because, well, most of the season doesn't suck. In fact, it's probably the best that the show would ever reach. But even the best season has a few duds, and this one is the duddiest. Why is it so bad? I could tell you now, but it's probably better if I do it during the review. This is El Cid. The episode starts out with the Sliders escaping a Mad Max-style dystopia, and in a unique twist on a classic joke, within the first 5 minutes of the episode, they actually do make it beyond Thunderdome. Oh, sorry, I have to take this. Hello? Uh-huh. Oh, I see. My apologies. Sorry, that was 2013. They wanted their joke back. But before they escape, they encounter the titular Cid, played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who comic book fans might recognize as the DC Extended Universe's Thomas Wayne, the comedian from the Watchmen movie, or Negan from The Walking Dead. But I'm willing to bet that most people recognize him from his most famous TV role. Yes, he played Damron, the Xindi reptilian scientist from Enterprise's Carpenter Street. Nah, I'm kidding. While I don't watch the show, I know that most people probably know him as the dad from Supernatural. Cid is joined by his battered girlfriend Michelle, played by Rebecca Chambers, not that one or that one. Quinn, being his usual quixotic self, tries to save Michelle from her evil boyfriend, but does so in a way where he telegraphs his intent to attack.
Run! I'll keep him back!
What is he, a Power Ranger? Just whack him and run, idiot. Rembrandt has the right idea. Doesn't shock me that Remy's the only one who lasted the entire run of the show. He's got the good sense to whack first and ask questions later. Anyway, they make their escape with Michelle and activate the timer, with Arturo arguing against Quinn bringing Michelle with them to the next world, but Quinn overrules him and hops through. However, despite the fact that the portal usually closes immediately after they hop through it for dramatic convenience, in this episode it remains open slightly longer, enough time for Cid to hop through behind them. The next world is a much nicer looking world, big glass buildings, a geodesic dome, and alfresco dining areas. As the Sliders exit the vortex, they're watched by two denizens of the world, one of them being LJ, that Discount Wayans brother looking guy who Cid happens to recognize. The Sliders have 26 hours before their next slide, and get to explain the intricacies of sliding to Michelle, and for any viewers who didn't pay attention during the theme song. But of course, Cid is close behind and intent on getting his girl back, attacking Quinn immediately. LJ comes to Quinn's defense, but for a different reason. You see, in this world, San Francisco is a maximum security prison, like the Season 2 intro monologue suggested as a possible alternate world. LJ fits them with bootleg security bracelets to help them blend in, and tells them that the entire place is government housing, and is apparently funded by a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting through funds from the U.S. Department of Education. The prison is also sieged by daily earthquakes that took out most of San Francisco, including their usual hotel, so they'll have to stay somewhere else, but LJ has the hookup.
I said minimum hassle.
How long?
Just one night.
And what do you do, steal a penny?
Why a penny?
I don't know.
Did you stick a penny in there?
The Sliders are less than enthused to find out that they're in a place that requires group therapy, but they're willing to see it through. However, Sid not only wants to go roam around unattended, but also demands that he and Michelle be taken home, which Arturo tells him is impossible, which he takes about as well as you'd expect.
Hey! Right there.
Come on, Sid, don't. Please, he didn't mean it.
You shut up.
Quinn talks to Michelle, who thanks him, and LJ returns and tells them that the prison has a quirk. It operates on the buddy system. The bracelets are linked up to another prisoner, so that if one prisoner does something wrong, they shoot and kill the other person the bracelet is linked to. In theory, that seems like a good idea, make them responsible for another life, but in practice, especially with Sid, is destined to fail spectacularly. Quinn goes out with LJ to track down Sid and stop him from committing any crimes, while Wade is left with Michelle to go through group therapy. LJ also lets slip another secret of the prison. A big earthquake is destined to sink the peninsula that San Francisco is on, an easy way for the state to get rid of their undesirables in a clean and fast way. Arturo discusses with Rembrandt about the timer's ability to handle extra mass when they're accosted by some of the local color, but Arturo negotiates his way out of it very well by threatening to rat on the guy to the guards. Wade and Michelle go through therapy and air their crap out, while LJ and Quinn find Sid about to rob an ATM, and try and fail to explain to him why it's a bad idea. Sid freaks out when he finds out that the money is red and not green, or whatever color it was on Mad Max World. Did they even have currency? Whatever, his bracelet goes off and LJ takes Quinn away to avoid being killed. Sid takes a hostage and Quinn's bracelet lights up, causing LJ to kick him out of the car. Quinn trips during an earthquake and his bracelet shows, but because of the chaos, the sniper can't get a good shot. Quinn gets back to the others and they head out into the streets, meeting back up with LJ at a subway tunnel. They head into the tunnel after Michelle warns Quinn that her LJ was a two-faced rat-fink, and it turns out that LJ is the same here too when he betrays them to a gang of prisoners, including the ones who accosted Arturo and Rembrandt who want the secrets of the timer to escape their dimension.
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
No, you know what? It wasn't sudden at all, because he was acting shifty all episode. I need a better clip for that. LJ's betrayal was unexpected.
And by unexpected, I mean completely expected!
They relinquish the timer, but disable it so they'll be able to get it back. LJ puts a gun to Wade's head, and Quinn agrees to enable it, but the guards suddenly arrive, led by Sid, who has allied himself with them because he promised them the timer. The gang tries to escape and get the timer back, with Michelle shooting LJ to give Quinn a window, but they're captured by Sid. They're thrown in a cell and the timer stolen, with the group of guards trying to convince one of the team to betray the others. Which, considering that they're all at each other's throats because this entire mess really is all Quinn's fault for saving Michelle, or alternately not making sure that Sid couldn't follow them, should be rather easy. Eventually, Arturo flips on them, which could have been a moment of real tension and drama for reasons I'll go into later, but it's an anticlimax because it was just an act to get close to the timer, so he could steal it and rush back to the others. Sid sees through it, but Michelle pulls her gun on him and they tie the guards and Sid up. Arturo and Michelle rush back to the group, but Sid escapes and comes after them. They activate the wormhole, but Sid shows up before they can all make it out, taking Quinn down. Michelle shoots Sid, and they all go into the wormhole, exiting on a presumably much less shaky world as the prison collapses. And now they have a new member of the team who will become an integral member of the cast and develop as a character, and yeah, she's never seen again. The episode has a lot of good, broad ideas, but very little substance to back the ideas up. The entire premise of the prison is interesting since it's basically still San Francisco, sort of like how the Gulag from Kingdom Come was like a city on Paradise Island with all the Greek architecture. Though, with that geodesic dome, I think they missed their real chance to make an episode where Walt Disney's experimental prototype community of tomorrow actually happened. The introduction of two newbies to the team also gave them a good way to get new viewers up to the status quo by having things explained to them. Though the fact that they're just revealing the intricacies of sliding to the guest stars is a little strange. There's not a lot of time for coming to terms with it, they just sort of force them to accept it. I also think that they give a good backstory for Michelle and do well in getting people to care about her. They certainly made me care about her, though I will admit, every time I watch this episode, I care less and less, but I definitely cared the first few times around. Michelle is a really good and nuanced character that is stuck in this crapshoot of a story. Any other story would have been better for her, maybe even make her a main character following the episode. She absolutely had the potential to go past it, unlike, say, the couple from Love Gods, who probably would have left on the first decent world they landed on since all they wanted was a better life. Michelle certainly would have been better than, or at the very least comparable to Maggie, and her debut episode wouldn't have had her flirting with Quinn while her disabled husband is sitting in the room. Yeah, 2 years later and I'm still mad about that. Her interactions with Quinn and Wade mirror the crap with Maggie, and her introduction wouldn't have also coincided with the death of a beloved character. On top of that, Michelle has a decent arc, finally standing up to Sid. Sure, it's a little on the nose with how he calls her a bitch, but we're also shown that she has some of the traits of an abused person, and gives her reasoning for being with Sid to Wade, which, while unfortunate, makes sense for the dystopian setting. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive. But Wade's judgment is understandable, since to her, she can't imagine being in an abusive relationship. Unless, of course, you count the one she has with the Season 3 writing staff and David Peckinpah. Seriously, breeding camp? What I'm saying is that despite this crapshoot of an episode, Michelle is the best part, and I hate that she vanishes into the ether after it ends, because that could have provided a decent running arc. But that would require continuity between episodes, and we all remember from Season 1 how much Fox hates that. My favorite part of the episode by far is the part where Arturo is a badass, going up against the guy who tossed a knife at him. Professor gonna shank a bitch. It shows his intelligence that he uses his knowledge of how the prison works to defuse the situation, and is something that I feel should have been done a lot more on the show. In addition, unlike a lot of the other episodes we've done, like Lipschitz and Exodus, all the characters act like themselves, again, because this was Season 2 and Torme was still around. So the characters act the right way in the majority of the episodes. No out-of-character mistaking doubles, and the characters show genuine emotion. And as much as I thought Quinn's announcement of his attack was stupid, it fits with Quinn doing this grand altruistic gesture and how he would have seen it as giving a distraction to let her escape. Sid is an idiot. Not only does he immediately cause trouble when he shows up, but then he basically signs his own death warrant by allying with the guards, which doesn't even make any sense on how that worked, because I can't believe that Sid thought it was a good idea. Even if they're corrupt guards, which they were, what would have stopped them from shooting him when he outlived his usefulness? Sid is the type of person who would do that, so the fact that he didn't notice that that could happen to him seems like a glaring oversight. Sid didn't really think that one through very well. It also doesn't make sense because as far as we could tell before this, Sid wasn't some master manipulator who planned. He shot first and asked questions later. How did he, in a fairly short amount of time, manage to rally the guards to follow him, when his previous method after realizing the money looked wrong was to take a friggin' hostage? In addition, it's a very disorganized prison. Not a lot of guards roaming around, and they only show up when something goes wrong. So guys like LJ can totally run illicit dealings because there's no oversight. Yet when they're out past curfew or get into a fight, suddenly it's a big deal? Wouldn't the better option for them to just let the crazy ones kill each other? Why do they care about it at all? Hell, that's basically what the method was for the warden from Glass House. Let Rousdower do what he wants and let them kill each other. Following on from that, the buddy system is a cool premise, but executed very poorly. It makes it so that essentially the dangerous felons live and the not crazy ones don't. It makes no sense from a standpoint of wanting to kill the undesirables. I think you'd want the more tame criminals, the ones less likely to stab someone in broad daylight to survive longer. Like that woman who poisoned her husband. She's a monster, but she's less likely to cause a prison riot than that guy Arturo and Rembrandt ran into. And why Why are these guys doing this if they know the consequences? Apart from that, Sid's a one-note character that normally wouldn't be too bad, par for the course, for a one-episode guest star, but considering that they put actual effort into Michelle, it's all the more baffling that we get absolutely nothing to make us care about Sid. Not even any redeeming qualities that would make it seem that Michelle would want to stay with him. We're told that he protects her, but we sure as hell don't see it between the intro scene and the fact that he leaves her at the first opportunity to go out and steal shit, and then locks her up with the others until Arturo agrees to flip on them. And then he springs her so she can leave with him. So her turning on him at the end was again completely expected since he was so reprehensible and stupid. In addition, while I liked Michelle's arc, the stuff with Wade was a sort of boring, cut and dry, our sliders are better because they don't live on Dystopia World and know better than those people. It actually feels like more of an early TNG era Star Trek episode, where humanity has evolved past such things. Ironic considering that Torme actually wrote for that era of the show. Wade's judgmentalness, while understandable as a viewer, also highlights a key problem with the episode, in that the sliders are putting their own beliefs and standards onto other worlds, which bleeds into Michelle's arc. It's the same thing that whenever you talk about books or movies made a long time ago, times were different, and while we're better now, we have to take stuff like Song of the South or Michelle's insistence to stay with a maniac as they come. Because while we might not like it, at the time, or in Michelle's case, it's what she has to do. Of course, when you live in a dystopia, you might have to stick with the crazy abuser just to survive another day. Not every lady is going to be Furiosa, you know. And I'm not saying that she's wrong to leave him. I'm just saying that because they show him as a generic abuser and crazy person, and drill into Michelle that she has to free herself from him, she doesn't really have an actual choice there. Oh, and when Arturo betrays them, it's not dramatic because the entire preceding scene is them wondering how they're gonna get the timer back before Sid kills somebody, so when Arturo flips, it's obvious that it's just a ploy. More importantly, he would never do that. Not even in the first few episodes when he was kind of a dick. He would never betray them. He sees Rembrandt as a brother, and Quinn as a son, and Wade as a daughter. He loves them as if they were his own family. This makes no sense. Unless you assume that he's the double prime Arturo who would totally sell them up the river to survive. He was a chicken shit. Same with LJ. It's not surprising because his behavior all episode indicated that he'd sell them out, if not to the warden, to the other prisoners. Also, what happens to Michelle? Like every other good thing about the show, she's completely forgotten about in the next episode. You gotta love how Sliders keeps destroying all the good things it gets. The one, count it, one character that I actually wanted to see slide with them after their debut episode. And she is gone. Meanwhile, their intentional main characters, Maggie, Diana, even Mallory, I needed at least one additional episode to warm up to them. I would have accepted Michelle right off the bat. 'Tis a shame. A general problem, and definitely the least egregious, is that the episode is sort of boring. They spend a good chunk of it traveling places within the prison. Between the trip on the tram, the professor and Rembrandt walking around, Quinn's trip with LJ, the journey into the BART station, it felt a lot like Randall's reenactment of Lord of the Rings from Clerks 2.
Those fucking Hobbit movies were boring as hell. All it was a bunch of people walking. 3 movies of people walking to a fucking volcano.
That's this episode. 40 minutes consisting of 5 people walking around a fucking prison. Also, the wormhole stays open way too long during the final standoff, and during the beginning for that matter. It's only supposed to stay open for a minute, but that was an issue in several episodes, including the episode where that limit was first introduced, so honestly I can't hold it against this episode specifically, but I had to mention it because I noticed it. To be fair to the episode, the entire episode, flaws, boringness, bad writing and all, could have been worth it with one simple change. Set it later in the production schedule. You see, in a few episodes after this one is post-traumatic slide syndrome. I'll save you the long spiel and just tell you that in that episode, they slide out at the end with an Arturo. but they don't know if it's the one we met in the pilot or a different evil one who they met earlier in that episode. Because Sliders hates continuity, it's dropped and never touched on before John Rhys-Davies jumped ship in Season 3. But if El Cid had aired after that one, that scene where Arturo betrays them, if you remove that bit where Michelle explains the ploy and they wonder what to do, would actually be dramatic and tense. If you were watching it and suddenly remembered that their Arturo might be evil, you might notice that entire speech Arturo gives Quinn is note for note exactly what the evil Arturo ended up doing. Taking credit for sliding, so it would suddenly be a question of, oh my god, is that... will he? That would have been unexpected and tied into the abandoned arc, which would have made it all the more sweeter when he immediately makes a break for the others, because it would also have established once and for all which one it was. As it stands, as much as Torme and everyone wants it to be the evil one that slid, I think it was the real one, if only because I refuse to believe that the evil Arturo, even if he developed as a character over the course of the next season, would have sacrificed him to save Quinn, regardless of his diminished mental capacity after Rickman's attack. I don't think he would have sacrificed himself to save the others. And to be clear, this isn't the case of Fox screwing with the schedule of episodes. The broadcast and production order both placed this episode long before post-traumatic slide syndrome, so it was never intended to tie into it, which I think is a shame. But ignoring that, let's focus on fixing the episode's flaws. Because that scene works regardless, I just wanted to point out that the scene could have totally worked and justified the entire episode. I would have preferred it if we got more time getting to know Sid's world so that we'd have a good sense of what Sid and Michelle left, and it would give us more reasoning for Michelle to break free once she no longer has to worry about that stuff. Fix Sid, give him a real character, real qualities. Show him to be someone that Michelle might consider staying with if she had to. Show him being a leader to his band of savages on his world before we see him beat Michelle. Make Michelle's insistence that he protected her makes sense. Maybe if she saw, now that she has no need to be saved from the dystopian setting, that Sid is just a whack job with a gun and decided to pull away, it would fit with the nuance that I swear I detected they were going for. And that would help curtail the problems with the judgmentalness, because we'd have known what Sid's world was really like, and so we'd have some sort of frame of reference to avoid it being a standard boring our world is better plot. In addition, I would have developed the prison stuff in a way that didn't require endless walking around. I know you want to show off the sets, but all we got was people walking around talking. Show us more about the prison. Who's running it apart from the corrupt guards? Do they notice the new people? Do they care? What's the deal with that corrupt guard who works with Sid? How does he know LJ? What's with the weird cane? I know that they've only got 40 minutes, but give me something that isn't... Furthermore, and my final fix is, I would have let Michelle stick around for at least a few episodes following this to allow her arc to complete, so that even if she did have to leave, they'd have at least done everything with her that could be done. And that was El Cid, a pretty bad episode. Maybe not quite as bad as the previous ones we've looked at, and definitely less infuriating than Lipschitz Live, since I didn't feel the need to snap a disc in half this year, but I still didn't enjoy it that much. In fact, I spent a lot of the time watching it as research, pausing it to go do something else, so the 40-minute episode took me about an hour and a half to finish, since my attention kept getting grabbed by more interesting things. But overall, the episode's not all that bad, and has enough good ideas that if maybe they had an extra 40 minutes, or curtailed the filler of walking around and traveling, might have saved the episode. But as it stands, it's one of the low points of Season 2, which is a shame because Michelle deserved better. Though I'm sure there's fanfiction out there that explains what happens to her. I love Sliders fans. Next time... It's been a while since our last book review, hasn't it? I think it's time to go back to the literary lair. See you next time. Hello? Hey, asshole, quit stealing our jokes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah, you should be sorry. Where was I? Oh, right. Anyway, so they end up in a Mad Max-style dystopia.